Attorney Stephen Greer stood outside the locked fence at the Thomas and Carol Gaddy house in Dunlap yesterday. He was accompanied by two inspectors, and then finally the chief of police of that small town showed up, very tall man, Mr. Fruth, and they stood about. They arrived at exactly 1 o'clock local time, that would be 2 o'clock Chattanooga time, in an SUV and parked in front of the beleaguered house of this elderly couple. She is 69 years old, and her husband Thomas is 71. And they waited. Now, they stood there for 2 minutes, and when I arrived, they were about ready to depart. And I said, well, don't you think it would be better to wait 15 minutes? That's the sort of standard. If someone's not going to show up to answer the door or show up for a meeting, 10 or 15 minutes might be a sufficient wait. And then you can say, well, you waited, and then the party left. And they agreed. They were about to walk off after 2 or 3 minutes and took my suggestion halfway. And they were there 8 minutes. And they were annoyed with me. The attorney was annoyed with me. He said, I'm a lawyer. I handle my cases in court. I don't handle them on the radio. I asked him the question about jurisdiction. I said, is it possible that the city of Dunlap can operate outside the authority of its charter? Because your case should be in city court, not in chancery. And he said, there is no such rule. And I had said that there's a rule in the city charter, Rule 16 or Chapter 16, that says all issues arising under the ordinance of this town have to be heard by the city judge. And he said there's no such rule. Now, if he's the city attorney, of course he's paid on retainer. He ought to know what the city charter says. But if you just Google Dunlap, Tennessee city charter, there it is. It comes up as a PDF, and there you can read it in Chapter 16. So the city attorney is now saying that the city charter does not apply to him and the mayor. And they seem to be people very concerned about the proper law, the proper use of the law. And here they are chasing their victims in the wrong court. Now, Chancery has jurisdiction. It's an equity court. It's a court where disputes are settled. But if you're a plaintiff and you're an aggrieved party and you're controlled by the General Assembly through a city charter, well, you really need to be using the city charter to control your operations and not say, well, I'm a free agent and I can sue wherever I want to. I can make this a federal case if I want to against this beleaguered elderly Christian couple. But no, they didn't think that ambitiously in their own self-government. They said, we'll just go to Chancery. Evidently, there was a friendly judge there. But the Judge Stewart, who handled the case initially in the first year or so, finally recused himself, and the case is being heard now by a circuit court judge, Judge Thomas Graham, who's sitting in his place in Chancery. And so the attorney said twice that he wasn't going to answer my questions, and was very, very dour-looking man. As there I was, my cheerful bow tie and my sensible shoes right there in Dunlap, Tennessee, looking out for your interest, because you, my listener, care about the free market and you care about constitutional liberty. I don't know what the people of Dunlap think about this case in their town. The town newspaper apparently hasn't covered it at all. I've tried to find reference to this couple online through the local newspaper, and I'm coming up empty. So I might be wrong about what it said in the way of coverage, but yours truly, David Tulis, here at Nooga Radio, I was the only media person there. TV3 didn't show up, and Ben Benton from the Chattanooga Times-Free Press, who apparently was working on a story about this conflict, wasn't there either, even though I've well published the coming story and the coming threat. The threat is jail for this couple. She, Mrs. Carol Gaddy, has already spent 2 nights in jail under contempt of court. She waggled a finger at Judge Graham and said something to the effect of, well, you'll be spending 10 years in the brig. And he tapped his gavel and found her twice in contempt because she said something more after the first bang. and spent 2 nights in jail and was fined $200. She was saying that she was going to sue him, and the penalty for the suit try to evoke a criminal case against this judge, I think she was saying was 10 years. So I'm not sure how a civil case can bring a jail sentence, but that's something in the direction of what she said, and she was in jail. So we have a principal couple, and what is the issue? Well, the issue is their house. It's a house built a crook in the creek that runs through town. Their house is about 2 blocks from the city hall and the nearby law offices of Stephen Greer and his legal compatriots. You can almost see their house. It's right just through the trees, and not. It's about a good long pistol shot away, I would say. And the couple is refusing an inspection, and the reason the inspection is demanded because 2 years ago, the mayor had his eye on this land. He had his eye on this property and said, well, there's a problem here, and we're not sure this is a safe structure. And so by looking at that house that's been under repair for some time, it's being upgraded, and it looks very nice. Inside, it looks very sound and very fine. And even outside, there's been major repair done on it already, renovation. And part of that involving lifting it higher off the ground on some very large concrete and steel cylinders. And I think that's because there's a flooding threat to that property. So work's been done, but the mayor and maybe others said this is we're not sure about this place. We're not sure, and we're going to deem it a dangerous property and demand an inspection. So that's what the whole issue is about, an inspection after it has been deemed by the city for unknown reasons to be dangerous to the public, right? So if you're standing on the edge of the lot there in Dunlap, it's thought that you might be in danger from the building somehow falling over. You can find out a lot about this case. This is a very interesting case, and I'm not going to deprive you of coverage of it. And you'll find out about it here at Nooga Radio. I do thank you for giving me just a couple minutes of your time here this morning. And also at the website for The Man Who Matters, and that is Nooganomics, Nooganomics.com. I've got my report still to write today about what happened yesterday, but the couple refused admission, and in fact they were not there. And just moments after Stephen Greer, the attorney, and the 2 inspectors left in their SUV, and the chief of police left, Mrs. Gaddy and her husband roared up in a little car and stood there and talked with 3 supporters and answered some of my questions there. And so that was the end of the ordeal. But they are facing civil contempt jail. That is what's been threatened by Judge Graham if they don't allow an inspection. So the question is, in what kind of state do we live? Do we live in an administrative state or a constitutional state? Now, the mayor seems to be operating on the premise that it's administrative. In other words, if we have an administrative need, that trumps your constitutional protections. Constitutional protections are important, and it is upon those that Mrs. Gaddy, who's an Americanist, we could say, she's a constitutional fan. She's kind of an old guard, constitutional-minded patriot. She says, no, we live in a constitutional state, and the rights of the public are inviolate, and she has fought with remarkable alacrity lawyers and courts and judges, and her case file in Chancery Court is voluminous. It's already started the 3rd green folder, which I looked at yesterday to get some of the latest filings. And she's done a very good work. She's recently filed a motion to dismiss all charges and then objection to search. That was one filed a few days ago, pending the deadline, which was set yesterday. And she says, under the U.S. Constitutional 4th Amendment, we have a right to be safe and secure in our home, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures, and it shall not be violated. And her argument is that the city, as an administrative organization, can't trump constitutional rights. An inspection is a search. Now, you see, if you're an administrator and take the administrative framework, which allows for arbitrary execution of deeds by the state, right? If you live in an administrative state, everything is arbitrary and administrative. It's not judicial. There are no constitutional rights that seem to work in that area. It's a realm where there is no constitution. It does exist, and you have the UAPA of every state, the Uniform Administrative Procedures Act of every state that operates. But administrative law does not ever trump statute, and it does not ever trump constitutional rights. And that the mayor pretends that they do. That because we have to inspect your house because we have a sworn affidavit from the mayor that it's dangerous, that we need to inspect it. That is effectively a search. But how can you have a search absent the following? Absent probable cause. Without probable cause, there cannot be a search. An inspection is a search. And yet Mayor Dwayne Land is a very friendly man, very friendly to me, said, we're just hoping for the best. This will all work out. And we just hope they'll take less in, just take a look around and see if everything's okay. That's his position. His position is that we live in an administrative state, and therefore there can't be, you can't say no, right? If the inspector or the police officer wants to look in, you can't say no. And searches are not allowed apart from probable cause. And what is probable cause? Probable cause is a sworn statement that an evil act or crime has been committed, and the officer then can search, right, or seize, or it has to be in the lesser standard that operates today, reasonable or articulable suspicion. Those let an officer arrest someone or search someone, even though he may not have probable cause per se. Without these, that there's been a crime committed, there is no authority to search, period. There just isn't. And yet Stephen Greer, the attorney, and the mayor say that there is. And they've had their way. They've had their way now for a year and a half. The Chancery Court in Sequatchie County has prohibited the Gaddys, who are helped by their son. He's a sort of a builder, contractor, carpenter man. I think he lives in Chattanooga. They're forbidding this family to do any work on this old house built by a judge after the Great War for Southern independence. So the Gaddys are rightly framing their defense as, well, this is not an inspection, this is a search, and you don't have probable cause to search, and there is no danger to this house. There's no danger to us in this house living here, and even though the court, in a recent filing, there's a filing called the Plaintiff's Second Amended Complaint. It refers to this as a dangerous building as defined by Ordinance 88. And then it also says the following, and this is just amazing to think that this is a great power. That you think about your house could be demolished. It says, in such time as that inspection has been made and the final report has been rendered, then, depending on the nature of the report, the defendants would have the right to have this matter heard before the full city commission. Or the full city commission, in the alternative, could notify the city attorney to take appropriate legal action to force the owners thereof to make all necessary repairs or demolish the building. So it is something that ends with the building, this beautiful house in which this family has lived, or this couple has lived for 15 years or so, and been making repairs. Faces demolition, though. Of course, if you had a property ever facing demolition, you could avoid that by boarding it up and preventing all access to it. That way, you could spare the bulldozer and the order to demolish. But you have to deal with these people somehow in their realm. They have an administrative municipal government realm, and you have to deal with them somehow in that vein. But the Gaddys are not making that compromise. They're saying, well, this is a search. You don't have probable cause to search, and you can't make. What basis do you make the claim that this is a dangerous building? Just looking at it from the outside, and we don't live in an administrative state. We live in a constitutional state, and that is what they're saying. She has also a very well done motion to dismiss all orders, and in there, she points out, Mrs. Gaddy points out, citing Tennessee and other states' cases, that a case filed in an erroneous court has no authority. The judge in that case has no authority to do anything. And so she cites many cases that just make that point, that also pointing out that the judge who acts apart from jurisdiction is acting in his personal capacity. He loses, as she says, judicial immunity if he's acting outside of his authority. So here we have a chancery judge in cahoots, if you will, in cooperating with the plaintiffs, claiming he has jurisdiction over this case, when the charter makes it very clear that the city is bound to go to its own court. It has to adjudicate all or administer all claims under the ordinance in its own court. No judicial process, whatever form it may assume, can have any lawful authority outside of the limits of jurisdiction of the court or judge by whom it is issued, and an attempt to enforce it beyond these boundaries is nothing less than lawless violence. That's quoting a case from 1859. In that century, I think the understanding of tyranny and despotism was clearer, and you find language like that much more readily than you do today. People today, the injuries by the state, injuries by municipal corporations are muffled. They're not described quite as vigorously as that. Well, this is David Tulis, and I do thank you for giving me a couple of minutes of your time. We're going to make note of one important fact. The law bill for his colleagues has reached $19,591.75. So that's the amount of money the taxpayers of Dunlap have paid this lawyer to harass and prosecute the grievances of the city, if you will, against Thomas and Carol Gaddy. $19,591. That's $19,591. Just write that down. The people of that town. When I was gathering these numbers by looking at the billings, I thought, man, that's not much money at all. $19,000 for almost 2 years of legal action seems like a pretty good deal. It seems that Stephen Greer is charging a very reasonable rate, and that it's not. And I was thinking that it would be $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, given how thick the case file is. But Stephen Greer is acting very modestly in his demands for the billing. Now, I don't know why. I assume he running a business, running a practice, he needs to get paid for everything that he does. Every billable hour is important, right? If you're an attorney, you want to have every hour billable if possible, so that your revenues are at their highest. And he has a practice, and he seems to be charging a very reasonable amount. On the other hand, it does seem, if you look at it from the perspective of the taxpayer, well, if they hear that it's $19,000 to go after this couple for an inspection, think of this: the city could probably build its own fence, keeping people away from this dangerous property, for probably $5,000, and yet it has not done that. It has spent $19,000 in legal bills to go after this couple, pretending that Dunlap is in an administrative state and not a constitutional state, not protected by constitutional guarantees. If you're going to search, you have to have probable cause, and probable cause in a case like this would be established by an oath, a sworn statement under oath. Now, there was an oath made by Dwayne Land, the mayor, but it is that this is a dangerous house. We've looked at it, and it's dangerous, and that's as far as it goes. That's not of a crime. And it's not really even of a tort. I mean, where's the injury to the city in this? How is the city injured by these people? I think the city's whole premise is that people will do everything they can to injure themselves and injure others. What this view doesn't hold and doesn't recognize is that people have a thing called self-interest, and that people generally will do things to their own benefit. For example, people who have insurance are much more careless as drivers and users of the road than people who don't. People who don't have insurance tend to be much more circumspect and prudent and careful and cautious, because they know that they face a high expense, and they face the expense of hitting someone else who may sue them in court or have to sue them in court. So they tend to be careful. If you have insurance, you will be careless. And so here we have we have the presupposition that this couple is somehow ready to endanger themselves and ready to endanger other people, which is these are sort of silly things to say, but that is presupposed in the city of Dunlap's claim against this couple. Well, this is David Tulis, and I do thank you for giving me a couple of minutes of your time. We are here at Nooganomics Radio. That's Nooganomics Radio. I'm live online. We are on YouTube, on Facebook. I do thank you for tuning in. We think that near is better than far, that small is better than big, and that simple is better than complex. And down in the footnotes where the good people argue with us and we take out our sword and our lance, we say personal is better than corporate, and physical than abstract, and constitutional is better than administrative.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
AM 1240 Nooganomics Radio News. Russell Stroud reporting. A sharp exchange between two city officials. City Councilman Larry Groen, a mayoral candidate, accused Wade Hinton, the city attorney, of not fully complying with state Freedom of Information Act request rules. Larry Groen saying in part in an email, "In my opinion, you have failed in your sworn responsibility as the City of Chattanooga ethics officer." Well, Wade Hinton firing back in an email saying, "Thank you for your email. It appears that you are mistaken, sir. Our records indicate that we are in compliance with the update we received in late January. Let this email serve as an update." Two people were shot in an altercation on Arlington Avenue on Monday afternoon. Malcolm Carter, who's 24, and an unnamed teenager, 16 years old, were both shot after an argument broke out on Arlington Avenue, and the two were taken to the hospital. The gunman still somewhere on the loose. The Signal Mountain neighborhood community is looking at possibly breaking away from the Hamilton County school system and forming their own. And now a board which is studying the pros and cons will be meeting on Saturday. If it's going on in the Tennessee Valley, it's going on Nooganomics Radio News.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Final expenses, funeral costs, cemetery lots, unpaid medical bills, probate cost, debts. Debts are due and payable upon death of debtor. Will these costs produce a burden and hardship on your loved ones? Who will be responsible? How will they handle them? These costs can total many thousands of dollars, only compounded greater with the grief of losing a family member. A safe and secure way to provide for these costs is with an affordable life insurance from Covenant Group Insurance and Financial Services. Covenant Group is a local company with local agents. Covenant Group still makes house calls. Covenant Group only represents A-rated companies. With many options to offer, Covenant Group can accommodate almost any budget. Great discounts for good health and plans available for impaired risk. Call today for a free, no-obligation consultation in the convenience of your home. Call Steve or Jada at 423-855-8484. Call today, 423-855-8484.
$25 goes by quickly these days, and 25 cents still just a quarter. 25 is the years of experience Schultz & Associates puts behind filing your tax return quickly, correctly, and electronically. Schultz & Associates.
Hi, I'm Chip Chapman with this question. Are you concerned about getting a timely refund this year? There is a solution. Ask Schultz & Associates about Refund Advantage. It's a no-interest loan that allows you to get your tax refund quickly. But some tax refund product fees do apply, so make sure and understand the details. You can receive your refund quickly via check or prepaid credit card. Ask about Refund Advantage when you visit Schultz & Associates, 6310 Bonnie Oaks Drive, or call 899-1130. Schultz & Associates.
Baseball sluggers often wear the number 25, or 25 is a full MLB roster. Just happens 25 is also the years of experience Schultz & Associates puts behind filing your tax return quickly, correctly, and electronically. Schultz & Associates, 899-1130.
And now to our reporter in the field.
We asked Ray at Ray's Plumbing what's important for homeowners to know.
Some field line systems can cost upwards of $10,000. The bottom line is to save yourself money down the road. I would definitely recommend everybody with a septic that is not on county or city sewer to have an inspection done by a qualified professional. It'd be great if nobody did inspections on them for all plumbing companies. That's what we do to make a living. Not to scare anyone, but it should be in the back of your mind. The danger is the field lines failing and costing thousands upon thousands of dollars and tearing your yard up. By preventative maintenance, you're saving yourself a large headache that may displace yourself and your family. That happens more often than you think. The waste is designed to stay in the tank, and that waste will build up over time. Even with treatment, we have to help that waste break down. Ultimately, preventative maintenance is the key that will keep you from spending $5,000 to $10,000 on replacing your septic system. The bottom line is to save yourself money down the road.
Call Ray at Ray's Plumbing, 421-6341, 421-6341.
Your marriage is over. You've been abandoned, betrayed. You're angry, shattered, and heartbroken. Don't go it alone. When you are facing divorce, you need an experienced advocate to help protect your rights in future. And you need it from a man with a sympathetic heart, but a hard nose. Attorney Clay Whitaker will fight for you in this most confusing and bitter time in your life. Clay Whitaker, 756-6400.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Expect increasing clouds out there for your Tuesday. Mainly dry, though. Highs into the upper 50s to near 60. Tonight, areas of showers will move in from the west. Lows into the lower 40s. Morning showers and breezy. Cooler Wednesday. Highs 50 to 53. Continued sunny and cool Thursday. Check out Hallmark Signature. Valentine's Day is today, and because there are no ordinary love stories, these are no ordinary cards. Find them in the card aisle wherever Hallmark cards are sold. And I'm Swarsheen 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
We live in an age when mediating bodies are in many ways gone. They're gone because of changes in culture and the rise of the modern state. They began to disappear very strongly in the 1880s in the progressive era, when it was thought by reformers, by suffragists and Unitarians that if we have a stronger, better government controlling workplaces, controlling marketplaces, we will have a better life and a better people. And the state, of course, is the best, is mankind best organized, right? The state is the acme of human endeavor, the best of human, society. The state is the thing that we need to organize ourselves to get ahead, to have progress. Without the state, there cannot be progress. There can only be anarchy and regress, perhaps you could say. And so in that era, the mediating institutions began their way out. And you could look at insurance, for example, that destroyed by replacing, by becoming more favored, organized bodies that provided the equivalent of insurance. These were affinity groups. These were associations that existed to serve particular groups in crises, particular bodies that would be like widows or injured workers, or men who are sick and they can't work. There are bodies that would step in and pay most of his wage in that time, and all voluntarily and by association. And so insurance came and took over many of those associational, liberty-oriented, voluntary arrangements that were organized, but they were not business, right? They were not a business where you make a profit. They were simply charities that served the public good, group by group. And with the state, of course, has done that as well. The state has in many ways destroyed the family and made war on all kinds of freedoms that are part of prosperity. We don't have prosperity today in large part because of the state and the worship that the state demands and the worship that it gets from the people. The people granted this in their expectation, in their hopes. These presuppositions are often just massaged and encouraged by the press. Of course, we live in the age of the media, where media is propaganda in large part, and so we have a loss of community. Now you say, well, what's community? What does that mean exactly? Well, community is something that I think modern people they use the word community and they don't really mean the word community. They mean network. For example, we refer to the UTC community, right? Or the banking community, or the gay community, or the black community. These are often not, the word community implies something that's not really there. What's really there most of the time, I would say, are networks, where people in the banking sector network together, right? People in the economic development community, right, in the chamber, look out to bring business into Chattanooga and Hamilton County, and that's their job. They're networkers. That's not a community. Community is something that affects the soul, and it respects the individual rather than debase and diminish him, and it also respects the institutions of human existence, and that would be the family and marriage. The family is the heart of society, and without the family, with the family ridiculed and made small and made impotent by the all-powerful messianic savior state, well, that family is going to be a shell of what it could be, and its functions will be mostly feeding and sleeping. And that's about it. There's no educational function in most families. The state takes care of that. And food, well, we eat to put food in our mouths and nutrition's in our bodies, but we don't eat to have conversations. We don't eat to explore issues. Meals are not like that, as they should be. We don't have guests at table. Strangers don't come to the table. It's just the table is a feeding station for the human animal, and it's not a place where we build family or build society or culture or meet people. It's not a place where we gather to look at the world at large, which you might have if you have, say, Dad bringing home engineers from Russia, or Elizabeth Elliot, the noted Christian writer, who would have often at her family's table noted visitors, writers, poets, ministers would come through that house, and she gained much wisdom from that. We have a lot of community. So what is community? Community is something that where there's mutuality, there's interest. I think community is enhanced and made possible by geography. So people on your street should be ones you care about more than people on streets 5 miles away in maybe a neighborhood that looks like yours, but it's not yours, right? You don't belong there. You belong where you live, and that's your community. If you make it, it's something that you make, and we see a loss of that in many things. I was reading. Now let's see what I was thinking of. Well, for example, in the homeschool world, people even there, even in the homeschool world, which used to be a strong community, is less so now. Homeschoolers are finding that support mechanism of the support group or the association is less necessary for their well-being than it would have been for their parents 20 years ago, or 30 years ago, as pioneers of home education. The community is not as strong. Homeschoolers don't identify as homeschoolers as much as they used to. They're not particular about their associations as they used to, and so that's affected things such as the photography business that always made the yearbook photos. That woman who runs a studio off of Brainerd Road, she has lost that business. That homeschoolers don't come to get their pictures made as families, and if they do, they don't buy them. And so she just dropped that whole line from the homeschoolers. And then there are also questions about newsletters, and of which I'm the editor. I'm the editor of the newsletter. How can we make it more attractive? How can we have more readers rather than slowly diminishing numbers of readers of the homeschool newsletter when there are more homeschoolers? Well, maybe it's because the newsletter is printed, and maybe, as we discussed last night, we should go to a digital, an e-zine or a digital product of some kind where the moms can read on their Kindles and not have to worry about a paper copy. I like paper copies. I think, of course, I'm past 50, so maybe that's just a prejudice of that aged person. People don't like to have paper coming into their houses. They want it all online, and they want a magazine that might have click-throughs. They can click to an advertiser's website or read about an author where something that's linked on a page. So these are all things that don't necessarily suggest a loss of community, but they, in my mind, they do a little bit. That there's and the idea that I'm trying to get at is maybe as the digital world continues this corrosion, if you will, it's a corrosion like that of the state, where we have the state has drawn into itself almost everything, every part of life. Look at care for the elderly. That's something that the state does. That's something that the state monitors and regulates and has a hand in, either in subsidy or controls for care and things like that. And in the digital economy, which is what we face, there's also the loss of this coherence, this cohesion around a cause or a principle or a human distinction. Right, all the homeschool families are alike. They're apart from the system. Most of them believe in God. They worship God. They go to church. They have larger families than others generally, and now thanks to the digital economy, newsletters are declining. Homeschool expos, homeschool trade shows are all in decline. Several in Tennessee have closed, and that's because people can buy things online. Why would you need to go to a place and actually meet people and talk to vendors and look at books and boxes containing software and things like that, and educational toys and gadget math toys, and they're like, why would you need to do that in person when you can do it online? So there's a kind of abstractification taking place, and even in this field in which I care a great deal, I've been the editor of that newsletter, Esprit, it's called. It's a French word for spirit. I've been the editor of that for 10 years or more. And I'm hearing about how there's less interest in it, and so how do we find people to take part in events? How do we find people to take part in graduation for this group of families? These are problems, but maybe it's not fair to say these are problems. These are just changes, right? Maybe they're just changes, and maybe they don't necessarily indicate or suggest that we've lost our humanity, right? That we've lost our sense of human touch, of human connection. Maybe without these mediating organizations, whether the insurance group in the 1880s or the homeschool association in the 2010s, maybe we don't need them because we can all have direct access to other people online, right? We have social media, and maybe there we can have this community that we are losing through our affiliations, through our affinities, through our connections, our ideas, for example, or perhaps our religious convictions. If you're a Christian and you're a homeschooler, well, you identify with homeschooling. You identify with that cause, right? It's a cause that had a birth in litigation. There was a struggle at the beginning. We were harassed. We had to go to jail. We had to fight cases through the courts of appeal. And but now that the struggle is over, we're all sitting sort of fat and happy, and the reason for coming together is the firefighter pension, the private firefighter pension. All the firefighters of a town would be together in that. Now we don't have that. We have the Tennessee Consolidated Retirement Fund, worth $42 billion, bigger than the state itself. Right? Why do we need a private association of firefighter widows and firefighters who pay into that system to take care of their own parents in their old age, and then themselves when they are old? We have the state to do these things for us. Do we really need to have community? Are we really so old-fashioned to think that community matters? Well, I think in some respects I'm not seeing everything that's out there, and you, my listener, I'm sure are aware of examples in which what I'm saying seems not true. It seems somehow that maybe I'm just missing something that of which you're aware, and I wish I knew what you were saying to your wife about that, because I'd like to sit in on that conversation. The story in the Chattanooga.com is about Richard Doggart, who is on trial in U.S. District Court, Robert Doggart, and he's on the front page of the Chattanooga Times-Free-Press today, and there's a lengthy account of the doings in his case in Chattanooga.com. There are closing arguments made yesterday. Jonathan Turner, his attorney, says that the plans for the attack on Islamberg were really furthered by the government. If the federal government can run a child pornography site to catch child pornographers, we can assume that it will plant in the minds of people evil acts. It will propose evil things, tempt them to evil things, as one government actor did with Robert Daugherty, and have that person, see if that person will do those things, and then we've got him, right? We have, if we know the man is prone to these things, we plant the ideas, we enable the ideas to take place, we encourage the talk, we arrange for meetings. Well, then we've got him, and that's what happened here, and that is part of the defense that Mr. Daugherty was entrapped. He had 7 weapons in his house, but then he points out that, well, that's not unusual for the Southeast. Many people have dozens of weapons in their houses, and it's not anything exceptional. Daugherty was called by his defense attorney an American patriot who is concerned about his country. The prosecutor in the case is Perry Piper, and he says that Daugherty wanted to take their property and their lives, referring to those people in Islamburg, New York. He said Daugherty had a huge amount of ammunition in his home and told everyone who would listen about the Islamburg venture. He said the FBI was correct in enlisting a confidential source to infiltrate his group after learning about the plan. The danger is the seed that he planted among the gunners that he sought to enlist. Now, the story in the TFP explains why he wasn't charged under the terrorism statute, and I think that's worth reading. His daughter, who lives in Sequatchie, his daughter also testified. Daugherty lives in Sequatchie County. He said that the militia groups need to rise up because the Muslim threats, he said it is our patriotic duty to do so. His children, 3 of his 4 daughters, I think, were present in the trial, and also numerous people from witnessing the trial that has been going on all week. He said, I don't want to kill children. He said, but there's always collateral damage. You know, when you say that, you're talking just like a government person. Government people always are killing people and are aware that sometimes there is collateral damage. At the same time, the story says, he said he expected there would be uprisings from militia groups in South Carolina, Texas, and Michigan. Prosecutor Piper said that the confidential source working with the FBI and posing as a gunner for Daugherty that day was outfitted with a small camera in his hat. The jury saw a short video in which Daugherty was seen outside the City Cafe. That's downtown. So that's a bit of news there. The thing that I want to mention about homeschooling that I was trying to think through with you, and the idea of community, I think might be enhanced by an idea that has good prospect, and that is the idea of apprenticeships. Now we have a system in our country where it's a kind of an industry that feeds off of debt and is fueled by debt, and it's the factory model of college, the university racket. And Charles Hugh Smith, one of my favorite writers, has a great essay today in which he talks about a couple days ago, the outmoded factory model of education that he says needs to be decentralized, individualized, and made more productive of education. He has a book it's called The Nearly Free University and the Emerging Economy, the Revolution in Higher Education. And he proposes in that book to design that would replace the factory curriculum and the teaching methods. And that would be by certifying the student and not the school. It would have a way where the student himself could be accredited, the school being the accreditation for the school much less so. So what you have here is decentralization, where those people who have the great authority, the universities and the colleges, it wouldn't matter whether they were certified or not. What would matter would be, is your child certified in his field? So he studies, he gains an apprenticeship, and he fights, effectively fighting back and bypassing the current model. And there are 2 fatal flaws with the way things are doing now. And he cites Ivan Illich, Deschooling Society, and another book, Pedagogy of the Oppressed. There's if everybody goes to a 4-year college, you're creating you have a disaster. Of course, we have a disaster already in the debt load of these students. That debt that cannot be discharged is past $1 trillion. Funneling every child into a horrendously costly 4-year university, he points out, has stripped the economy of all the skills that aren't taught in college: welding, pipe fitting, just to name a couple. Reskilling America argues that, and that's a book, by the way, argues that we have purposefully led our practical skills education decline in favor of highly impractical goal of issuing millions of diplomas in gender studies, environmental studies, and so on, 4-year degrees that qualify the graduate to work in coffee shops or as Uber drivers. Even STEM appears to be mismatched. The STEM degrees don't match the real world market. Evidence suggests that the number of tech or STEM jobs has remained constant for years, undermining the assumption that graduating 1 million STEM grads magically creates 1 million new STEM jobs in the real world. And also, you spend $100,000 or more getting a university education, and there's little value in it. There's a study called Academically Adrift Limited Learning on college campuses that says American higher education is characterized by limited or no learning for a large proportion of students. And he has a couple of charts that show how this racket, the education racket, works. There's just a mind-boggling amount of money per student that's being spent on administration. The number of administrators over university professors is up 34 times more growth in administration than in professors. The technology and tools already exist to accredit the student and not the institution, and provide distributed courses, adaptive learning, and real-world workplace-based workshops for a tiny fraction of the cost of ineffective, unaffordable factory model of higher education that we are burdened with today. Accredit the student and not the school. So that's taking the home education model even further. And I'm thinking that this might be a great little essay to publish for the moms in the March 1 edition of the Esprit newsletter, of which I'm the editor. Thinking about that, thinking about all these moms who want to be encouraged, giving them a sense that, well, we can send our sons and daughters on, but we don't have to have them learn anything about FAFSA and debt. This is David Tulis, capital and not debt, capital.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
On this cruise ship, your favorite pool makes its own way. The sun is getting low. You're not too bad yourself. Smart guy. Took advice and deals from Expedia in Chattanooga. Great food, great fellow passengers, made friends. Terrific prices, free upgrades. Use the card with the onboard credit for a cold one. Maybe use it in the game room. Expedia Rail, Expedia Flights, Expedia Cars. Maybe red tie for dinner. Expedia Cruise Ship Centers on Gun Barrel near Best Buy. 551-3770.
There's a reason why Alliance Physical Therapy is a choice of professionals and those who care about first-class, top-notch service and treatment. Because at Alliance Physical Therapy of Chattanooga, we don't just treat the symptoms in your body. Whether you're suffering from stiffness, muscle spasms, back pain, chronic headaches every day, stress of life demanding more and more of you, Alliance Physical Therapy takes a holistic approach to healing, mind, body, and soul. Alliance Physical Therapy with a location near you and 9 others in the Chattanooga area. If you don't have a doctor or if your physician's plan for chronic pain is not working, Alliance Physical Therapy will help. Visit Alliance Physical Therapy on the web at nopainpt.com. That's nopainpt.com. Alliance Physical Therapy.
Are you shovel ready to build a house, but you're not a builder? Are you shovel ready? Michael's Homes is ready to bulldoze its way to a solution for you. You have ideas on what you want in a house, but you're looking for someone to bring your ideas into a plan and turn your plan into a house. Michael's Homes, custom builder. Michael's Homes has lots available at a new subdivision, River Bay Estates, that's Harrison. Maybe River Watch in Saudi Daisy. Choices galore, lots, houses, beautiful homes all over Chattanooga. The Canyons, Hickson. Crystal Brook, Appleton. Drive in, take a look, consult with us. We build on your lot or ours. Homes-Chattanooga.com.
Call 423-413-9929.
Cash, 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 and more cash. No, but it'll get you the gold, silver, and diamonds just for her that may get you some loving.
Diamonds are a girl's best friend.
It's for Valentine's Day. Are you crazy? You're just getting her flowers that are going to wilt? Give her something that'll last a lifetime. Gold, silver, diamonds, jewelry. A girl's best friend are not wilting flowers. They're diamonds. So let me tell you, my friend, don't make a mistake. Rick Davis, gold and silver, with the shiniest diamonds at the best price. But you gotta get to Rick before the deals are all gone. Don't wait. Rick Davis, gold and silver. He's got your cash, 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 and more cash. And for Valentine's Day, lots of what she'll love.
Diamonds are a girl's best friend.
Rick Davis, gold and diamonds. 5301 Brainerd Road, Chattanooga.
It's Valentine's Day, a day to be happy when you have a babe.
McCune, Williams, and Ashley PLLC offers a full array of legal services to meet the needs of businesses and individuals. Our attorneys represent diverse backgrounds, interests, and legal emphasis, but we share one common goal: providing the highest quality legal services to our clients through the combination of our talents, experience, and expertise. In each case, we strive to tailor those services to meet each client's specific circumstances. Business law, business organization, civil litigation, commercial litigation, conservatorship and guardian law, bankruptcy law, just to name a few. With over 188 years of combined experience, McCune, Williams, Ashley PLLC is here to help you and your business succeed. MWALawfirm.com. That's MWALawfirm.com. Call 423-756-6400. That's 423-756-6400.
Any way that you kill somebody when they're innocent and defenseless is detestable.
My biological mother was 7.5 months pregnant when she had a saline abortion, which was meant to burn me both inside and out. And the doctors have also said that I should be blind and all of these horrendous things. Praise the Lord, the abortionist was not on duty the moment that I came into the world. Praise the Lord, the abortionist was not on duty the moment that I came into the world. I was actually delivered in an abortion clinic. Had he been there at the time, he could have ended my life with strangulation, suffocation, or leaving me there to die. But a nurse called an ambulance and had me transferred to a hospital. Had he been there at the time, he could have ended my life with strangulation, suffocation, or leaving me there to die. So then I was placed in the incubator, weighing 2 pounds, and they said I would die. And yet I just kept on living.
Here comes Dale Earnhardt Jr. He's got third. He's going for second. Earnhardt going for the lead.
The NASCAR Sprint Cup Series is on the Motor Racing Network.
Fox News Talk 1240.
Hear it live on the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
Check it out live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
Fox News Talk 1240.
Get back there, you dang Yankee! Great horny toads, I'm up north. Gotta burn my boots, they touched Yankee soil. Lay down your arms and step forward, Yankee!
What's the hassle, schmassel?
My orders from General Lee is to hold the Macy-Dixie line, and no Yankees are crossing it.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Expect increasing clouds out there for your Tuesday. Mainly dry, though. Highs into the upper 50s to near 60s.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
WSDT Sunny Daisy, Chattanooga.
CBS News, I'm Frank Sedapani. As President Trump looks for a new national security advisor, Democrats in Congress are demanding an investigation of the one who just left. Retired General Michael Flynn was forced to resign for lying to Vice President Pence about a December phone call with the Russian ambassador. Flynn misled Pence when he denied having what would have been an inappropriate discussion of U.S. sanctions on Russia. CBS's Stephen Portnoy has more on the story from the White House.
White House aides say General Flynn had to go because he misled the vice president. But the administration was informed weeks ago by the acting attorney general, herself later fired, that Flynn did talk about the sanctions with the Russian ambassador. Democrats now want to know what the president knew and when. Republican Senator John McCain joins them in saying the resignation only raises more questions. In a tweet, the president says the real story is the illegal leaks coming out of Washington.
In Moscow, reporter Alec Loon tells us what Russia has to say about Flynn's forced exit.
Flynn's resignation has been seen in Russia as a blow to improving ties. The head of Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee called it a negative signal for the mending of Russian-American dialogue.
Here at home, tens of thousands of California families are waiting to hear when they'll be able to return to homes threatened by potential flooding from the massive Oroville Dam. From the scene, CBS's John Blackstone tells us it all depends on how quickly a storm-damaged spillway can be repaired.
Repairs are underway. The water level behind the dam is dropping, and the sheriff will make a decision sometime about when those people will be able to return. But for now, no one knows when they'll be allowed back home.
Officials hope the repairs will be done before another big storm hits later this week. South Korean reports say the half-brother of North Korean communist leader Kim Jong-un has been assassinated at an airport in Malaysia. One report says 2 women, believed to be North Korean spies, attacked Kim Jong-nam with poison needles. A medical group is urging people with back pain to try exercise, acupuncture, or stress relief techniques before turning to drugs. CBS's Dr. John LaPook.
A lot of back pain is sort of self-resolving over time, and you try to do no harm first. If for the pain that lasts and is chronic, then you may need some more treatment.
The biggest attraction at Disneyland yesterday wasn't anything at Fantasyland. It was the all-too-real fire burning in the main parking structure.
Oh, wow. There it is.
Oh, my God.
8 vehicles were damaged or destroyed. 7 workers had to be treated for smoke inhalation. The National Retail Federation says the average person spends $85 on this and that for Valentine's Day. In Buffalo, the average seems to be a little to a lot below average.
0. We give each other a kiss and say Happy Valentine's Day.
I'm probably going to spend about $20.
$85.21 on their significant other or spouse. I guess I'm a loser then.
In early Wall Street trading, the Dow Industrials are down 9 points. This is CBS News.
Ransomware is software that can infiltrate your business through email, enabling cyber criminals to hijack sensitive information as ransom for your own data's release. Leveraging Barracuda email security with advanced threat detection can stop a ransomware attack in its tracks. As an added measure, Barracuda Backup allows you to recover your data without having to surrender to extortion. Crime doesn't pay when you protect your business data with Barracuda. Go to barracuda.com/ransomware to learn more.
Attention! Do you have outstanding federal student loans? Then get ready for a special free offer. Graduate Service Center wants to give you free information to see if you qualify for one lower monthly payment or student loan forgiveness. The call is free, the information is free, and there's absolutely no obligation. See if you qualify for lower monthly payments or loan forgiveness. Call now. 800-801-4950. That's 800-801-4950. Don't wait. Call now. 800-801-4950.
A new study confirms what a lot of people have suspected about firstborn children. CBS News correspondent Vicki Barker.
Got an older sibling? Chances are he or she scores higher on IQ tests than you do. A long-term study of nearly 5,000 American children found firstborn seem to have better thinking skills, possibly because they received more mental stimulation in those early months and years as an only child. The Scottish researchers say their findings may explain the so-called birth order effect, where children born earlier tend to get better grades and then earn more than their younger siblings. Vicki Barker, CBS News.
In Pennsylvania, 22 was the not-so-magic number for Randy Stallsmith. After being caught driving without a license for the 22nd time, Stallsmith was sentenced to 3 to 6 months in prison. He appealed the sentence, but a Superior Court panel upheld it, saying his past behavior provided no indication that his aberrant conduct would cease. Frank Settapani, CBS News.
On AM 1240.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Expect increasing clouds out there for your Tuesday. Mainly dry, though. Highs into the upper 50s to near 60. Tonight, areas of showers will move in from the west. Lows into the lower 40s. Morning showers and breezy. Cooler Wednesday, high 53. Continued sunny and cool Thursday. Check out Hallmark Signature. Valentine's Day is today, and because there are no ordinary love stories, these are no ordinary cards. Find them in the card aisle wherever Hallmark cards are sold. And I'm 1412 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr. On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
Truex Jr. is off the pace, and he is headed to the pit lane. lane. Elliott powers around the outside. Michael McDowell pops a right front tire. Here's Martin Truex to the bottom. Blaney blocked him off too. Meanwhile, Chase Elliott went 4 wide on the back straightaway. They're side by side for the lead.
Hear it live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
Hot News Talk 1240.
The voice of NASCAR. Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's David Tulis.
Rights are not self-exercising. They don't unfold themselves and work for you. They're not like an automatic jackknife where all the blades open up and you have suddenly your defenses. They are things that they are defenses against claims of the claims made against you by the state. They are claims that you have or defenses that you have that keep you at safe distance from another person, another private party. And that private party, if he offends you or hurts you, then commits a wrong against you or a tort against you, then that's because he's violated your rights. He's come into your space and he's injured you in some way, and you have defenses against that. But one that we look at a great deal here at the David Tulis Show, at Nooganomics, and at Nooga Radio here at our radio station, is that encounter with the state. The state does not have rights as far as you're concerned. It has authority and power. You, my listener, have rights, and it is with these properly used, properly unfolded in front of you, that you restrain and push back and push away from you the exercise of these powers by the state and state actors. To look at some of these questions, we have with us today John Wolf, who's an attorney, a seasoned attorney. He's 62 years old. He's a Democratic activist. He has an office downtown in Chattanooga and specializes in personal injury cases and civil rights cases. John, how is it that rights are not self-exercising and self-unfolding for the benefit of my listener? Why does he have to do something, and what does he have to do?
Well, the reason is because in America, it's up to each individual to know what the law is and to make sure that the people who make the law follow the laws. And of course, that includes policemen on the street. It includes legislatures in Nashville and the people in Washington too. But you have to be aware. You have to know what you're doing. You have to, there's plenty of lawyers to talk to if you have any confusion about rights or what you want to do. There's so many people that are knowledgeable that will give you a free consultation. There's really no excuse not to be well informed about a particular situation.
Well, what about just generally? The listener doesn't have a particular situation in mind, but what can he get from you in the way of general counsel as to how to think about yourself, let's say vis-a-vis the officer, and let's still being general, I'd say we're on the side of the street. What about traffic?
I think the best thing to do is just to remember, try to think of it from the viewpoint of the police officer in a way. I mean, because look at what the officer has to go through. I mean, nothing. Of course, I've sued the police department more than any other lawyer, probably all up and down 75, Bradley County, Roane County, Chattanooga, Hamilton County, and I've had a lot of success and some failure doing that because I like to vindicate people's rights when they've been abused by the police. But on the other hand, for the average person, you need to look at it from the police perspective somewhat, because the police every day they have to deal with people's problems. Okay, not of their own making. I mean, there's a car wreck, they've got to go out in the rain and deal with that. Somebody beats their wife, they've got to deal with that. Somebody lies about how fast they're going. I mean, it's just one mini episode after another, and they get tired of it. There's a lot of wear and tear on them. There's low pay in police. There's a lot of politics in police work, and the best thing to do is when you do have a confrontation or an engagement with the officer is to be nice and as polite as you can and be as cooperative as you can. Now, of course, you have rights that he has to respect. If there's no probable cause, for instance, that you've done anything, he doesn't have a right to really search your car. He doesn't have a right, to my way of thinking, of having a canine dog circle your car or anything like that. I mean, unless there's something that you've done that is demonstrably wrong or suspicious, he has no right to treat you.
Okay, well, that's fine to say that, but here my listener is sitting in the car and the officer's approaching the window, the back window, and the officer, he's not saying, well, you have a light out, he's not saying you didn't fail, you failed to he's not saying you failed to turn your indicator on making a turn. Those are all causes for a stop, right? Those are all pretexts for a stop that are lawful, right? They're defensible from his perspective.
Right. If there's any traffic violation, but just because there's a administrative violation of a tail light or something like that doesn't give him a right to search your car.
No. Okay. But what about that encounter before anything comes up about a search or we're not sure where he wants to go with this stop? How is the listener supposed to deal with that officer? What should he say? What should he not say?
I think you have a right to say, well, officer, why are you pulling me over? Because, you have a right to know why you're being detained. Because once the police officer turns on a blue light under the Constitution and under state law, that constitutes a seizure. Because once those blue lights are on, that means he's giving you an official signal that the state is telling you have to stop what you're doing. And that's called detention. It may just be temporary and it may not be significant in the long run, but yet that is a seizure under the Fourth Amendment. However, ephemeral it may prove to be.
So asking why have you stopped me is that a better way of phrasing it, or can you state your probable cause? Is that?
I wouldn't put it in legal terms because that's kind of confrontational. I think the best thing is just say, officer, is there something wrong? I think and I think of course he has the duty to tell you what you've done or why he stopped you, because that's a detention. I mean, he's interfered with your freedom of movement, and I think it's up to him to say why he did that.
Okay, so if you say, officer, why did you stop me? You're making him determine in his own mind that he has probable cause or a reasonable or articulable suspicion, right? Is that important?
Well, I think he has to tell it to you unless it's obvious. I mean, if you run off into a ditch or, your lights are out or you're driving around at midnight and or later and you've got one headlight and not another. That's the sort of thing, I suppose, that you understand pretty immediately why you have been pulled over.
Okay, so he'll say, well, you have a main headlight out on your right front.
Right.
That's the cause. Okay, so at that point, where do your rights go? Are they suddenly caving in?
No, at that point he has the right, I suppose, if
you mean the authority,
ordinance to go ahead and cite you for improper lighting, or he can just give you a verbal warning and just go on, just say take care of that later. Now, in the meantime, of course, if you roll your window down, he smells marijuana, and then he has probable cause for something else. Then at that point, his rights as to your person.
You mean his authority? He doesn't have any rights.
Well, his okay.
He has authority.
His authority expands at that point.
Okay.
And then, of course, once there's if you're in a state where this drug is illegal and he smells it, then I suppose he has a right to search your car for that drug. And that's just now that's assuming that he had a reason to pull you over in the first place. Now, if the videotape or some other evidence shows that you shouldn't have been stopped initially, then of course anything that he does after that would be barred as evidence against him.
But Laura, let's say he didn't have really a cause to stop you, but then he stops you and he finds some contraband in your car. And then he demands the search. Does that search and the fruits of it is that kept out?
I think
because the first there was no initial probable cause.
Right. Yeah, because it's a pretextual stop. He had no right to interfere with your movement. He had no right to put you under arrest. He had no right to flash his blue lights, and therefore get into a position to smell the marijuana or see whatever it was in your car. So you're suggesting that the listener be a belligerent claimant in person. He's standing on his rights. What if the officer says, and he's saying this in a barking way, you need to let me search for public safety reasons. You need to let me search your trunk. I mean, he's barking that at my listener. Should the listener agree? No, you need to stand on your rights. Now, once you consent to a search, then the search most likely is going to be valid. Even if the officer uses a little bit of coercion, even if he uses flattery or tries to coax you, and even if he lies to you.
What does coaxing look like? How does that work?
Come on, you need to go ahead and let me do this. I'm not going to stand out here all night and wait for you to say yes or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be something like I would call coaxing.
What other examples?
You stand on that right. If you don't think that he should search your car, you don't want to sign any permission slip to allow that search. You want to, in fact, you want to put in writing that he shouldn't search if it's possible to do that, and don't ever give him verbal permission to search the car if you really want to stand on your rights and feel that you've been invaded for no reason.
All right. So no, I'm not. I refuse permission to grant. I'm refused permission to search. You are not to search my car. I deny you permission to search. I mean, those are the kinds of things you need to say, and that's being pretty vigorous, isn't it?
Yes, but that's what
being pretty assertive, isn't it?
Otherwise, the court, if you act ambiguously, the court will read that as a waiver of your Fourth Amendment rights to be free of search and seizure.
Well, how does someone act ambiguously? Give an example of that.
Well, officer, I
John
don't
Wolf.
know. Maybe it's a good idea. Why are you wanting to do it? Is it something that I have to do? I mean, that's the sort of thing that is kind of wishy-washy. But of course, that's not consent. But still, it might make the officer believe what he wants to believe. The best thing to do is to be unambiguous at every stage.
Well, what about talking to the officer? It seems to me that talking it can be as much a concession as yielding to a search. How can one say enough to the officer to handle the encounter, but not talk to the officer and make speech?
Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with communication. I mean, you just have to make sure that you don't agree with what you don't be talking to agreeing to do something you don't want done.
Well, where are you going, buddy?
It's okay to be courteous. Well, I've been asked.
Where are you going, buddy?
Where
have you been?
At that point, I think you can say, well, that's my business. I mean, if you wanted to make I was asked that one time down near Atlanta, I guess one time when I was like about 59 or 60 years old, where I was going by an officer was about half my age. I was down in DeKalb County and I had to rent a car. Mine was being repaired, and I got the worst looking rental on the lot because that was the only one left. It was the cheapest one, so I guess I drew attention somehow by the police down there. But they detained me for like 45 minutes for nothing. I should have sued them, but I didn't. But that's what they do. You don't have to answer a question like that if you don't want to. And if you feel like if you feel that you're in the right, then I think you should just. On principle, you're fine with not answering. Where are you going? He's not your daddy. He's not your school principal, or she's not. So you don't have to answer a question like that.
So, what'd you drink when you were at dinner?
Well,
do you have any marijuana in your? Do you have a gun? Do you have a gun in your pocket? Do you have a gun under your seat? These are all questions that I see. I see a piece of brass there in the back seat there. You a hunter? Now, all right. There we have a conversation. Here we start flapping our gums, John Wolf, attorney. Yeah. Are these innocent, harmless types of conversations we should have with a friendly officer there at the window, or should we say I don't talk to police or things like that?
I don't think you have to answer questions like that. I really don't. I mean, if you want to just stand on your rights and say I don't believe that I have to answer a question like that, I've given you my identification. You said that I don't have a tail light out, so if you could just give me a ticket for the tail light, I'll be on my way, unless there's some other business that you feel like you.
Well, what about if the officer doesn't have probable cause, why give him a license? If does he suspect? Why do you have to give your license?
Well,
or show anything else about your.
I don't think dealings. You really have. Well, now that's a good question. I don't know the answer to whether or not you have to produce an identification upon demand by an officer. My sense of it is, and I haven't researched law on this recently, is that you probably don't have to. Especially if you're pulled over for no reason.
But the problem for the listener is, how does the listener know whether the officer has no reason? I mean, and so
that's true.
The listener saying, well, suddenly the fact that he's back there must mean I did something wrong, and I'm just not sure what it might be. Mm-hmm. And so there's that sense of uncertainty in the listener's mind there on the side of the road, John Wolf.
That's true. That's an absolutely good point.
So a right is not self-exercising. It has to be asserted by the listener. Mm-hmm. You have to search your right. No, I'm not answering questions. No, I'm not granting a search. And I would say probably the listener should be willing to be inconvenienced for half an hour, 45 minutes. Is there in Tennessee, John, a limit on the time an officer can hold you before the dog comes or something like that? If he's going to threatening to sniff out your car with a dog?
I have no idea. I know that the Supreme Court, I think, has ruled that they can't prolong the encounter in order to allow enough time for the dog to come. That would
okay. They can't hold you for an hour and a half just because the dog is busy on the other side of the county.
I think that's been ruled out specifically by the U.S. Supreme Court.
Now, let me ask you about the difference between an inspection and a search. We've been hearing about a case in Dunlap, Tennessee, Sequatchie County, where the city government wants to inspect a house that the mayor swears is possibly dangerous. But he says it's a dangerous house That was the first part of the lawsuit a year and a half ago. And the couple, Thomas and Carol Gaddy, have refused permission to go on the property to, as the city would say, inspect for danger and damages. It's called a dangerous house under the nuisance building ordinance, and the city wants to inspect. Is an inspection the same thing as a search? And talk about the difference.
Well, I think an inspection is just well, you can sort of analogize this to a pullover. What an officer sees in plain view, without like going under the seats or trying to take your car apart. That's an inspection. A search is when you get into every nook and cranny of a car or a house. So that's an inspection is more like a walkthrough.
Should this couple be afraid? They're standing on their constitutional rights. There's no probable cause to search. They've not suspected us of any crime. We will not let them in because it is in fact a search. And but the city says, well, we're just looking out for public health, safety, and welfare. That's their pretext, and we just want to make sure that everything is safe. And how are they different? Well, is there a danger?
They both are. In both situations, you're talking about an intrusion of liberty. You have the right to protect your person. You have the right to protect your property. And the government can infringe that, but there has to be articulable suspicion. In other words, they can't just do it on intuition. There has to be a demonstrable, objective reason for doing what they're doing. And that what they're doing is invading in your car.
All right,
they're invading your liberty. They're stopping.
I understand that.
As far as the house goes, it's the same thing. They're coming into what the Fourth Amendment writers would call your castle. They're inconveniencing you. They're government agents inside a house and trying to evaluate what you are doing in the privacy of your home.
Well, so there, but we have these two distinctions. We have the constitutional rights, and then we have these administrative authority. It's an administrative authority that's being asserted here by the city, by the city's mayor and through the city attorney, with two inspectors. They were on hand yesterday at the gate of this couple, a chain link fence with a rolling gate and private property sign. There's ordinarily a federal flag, a Yankee flag, and a Confederate flag on either side of the entranceway to this very nice looking building on Main Street. The city is, what kind of jurisdiction is it exercising? Is it a criminal jurisdiction? Is it a civil authority? Is there any authority to search civilly, John Wolf?
Well, they have administrative searches, but see, they would have to be doing.
What's that?
Well, that means there's not any. They won't come in with a criminal warrant. They'll come in with just an authorization from some civil authority to do what it is they want to do.
But here, this is a private house. This is not a public government slum.
The thing is I think that what the owner should point out to the courts is why are they? If this is something that's uniform, and every homeowner in that area has to submit the same thing at the same time that this person, the aggrieved person, does, then at least you have uniformity. There's no lack of equal protection. But if you just single one person out and you put the legal light or the government hands on him or her and him or her alone, then you have an equal protection problem. Why isn't this person being treated like everybody else? Why are they different? And what justifies the government singularly intruding upon them?
If this is a routine, regular, ordinary municipal corporation, that kind of authority for searches of everybody for administrative purposes for health, safety, and welfare is not allowed. No city in Chattanooga or in Tennessee has such authority, I dare suspect.
Well, I agree with you. I mean, I think it's something they should resist, and they should go to court and try to stop it and get an injunction. Just go to the city court or to the chancery court and ask. I think the city court has jurisdiction over some things that have to do with the administration of the housing codes and things like that. But definitely that needs to stop. I mean, I'd like to know what the motive is and why the city is putting its spotlight on these people.
The house it's a very fine looking house built originally by a retired general after the war to prevent Southern independence. And this couple has had this house for 15 years.
Is that also
and it's
the Civil War?
Is that what they call it around here? Well, we're in the South, John, so we call it. We have various militant terms for that conflict.
The war between the states.
Well, that's what Lee Anderson refer to it as. This is David Tulis, and we're glad you're giving us a couple of minutes here at Nooga Radio. Nooga Radio, we're talking with attorney John Wolf. He runs a practice dealing with civil rights and personal injury. His office is downtown. He's a Democratic activist and has been long interested in the radio field. The next question we're going to ask John is about and callings. How is it that certain callings are licensed by the state? You have your hairdressers, your attorneys, your accountants, your CPAs, and yet the state also will take other things that are not callings or not professions and turn them into prohibited acts through the licensing process. And they make these acts illegal, unlawful, and prohibited unless you have a license. And that would be, for example, the use of the public road. And though it's not clear that it's illegal, of course, to operate, to travel by car or truck, but there is a presumption against anybody who is traveling freely on the public right of way. Many of these people who are doing that, I want to remind you, are immigrants. They're from Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, Colombia, and they travel freely without permission. Are they criminals? How is it that the state can convert the exercise of a right of movement into a privilege when it's not a calling or profession? That's a question that John Wolf is going to take a look at in just a minute. This is David Tulis, and I've got some messages for you.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
AM 1240 Nooga Radio News. Russell Stroud reporting. A sharp exchange between two city officials. City Councilman Larry Groen, a mayoral candidate, accused Wade Hinton, the city attorney, of not fully complying with state Freedom of Information Act request rules. Larry Groen saying in part in an email, "In my opinion, you have failed in your sworn responsibility as the City of Chattanooga ethics officer." Well, Wade Hinton firing back in an email saying, "Thank you for your email. It appears that you are mistaken, sir. Our records indicate that we are in compliance with the update we received in late January. Let this email serve as an update." Two people were shot in an altercation on Arlington Avenue on Monday afternoon. Malcolm Carter, who's 24, and an unnamed teenager, 16 years old, were both shot after an argument broke out on Arlington Avenue, and the two were taken to the hospital. The gunman still somewhere on the loose. The Signal Mountain neighborhood community is looking at possibly breaking away from the Hamilton County school system and forming their own. And now a board which is studying the pros and cons will be meeting on Saturday. If it's going on in the Tennessee Valley, it's going on Nooga Radio News.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Final expenses, funeral costs, cemetery lots, unpaid medical bills, probate cost, debts. Debts are due and payable upon death of debtor. Will these costs produce a burden and hardship on your loved ones? Who will be responsible? How will they handle them? These costs can total many thousands of dollars, only compounded greater with the grief of losing a family member. A safe and secure way to provide for these costs is with an affordable life insurance from Covenant Group Insurance and Financial Services. Covenant Group is a local company with local agents. Covenant Group still makes house calls. Covenant Group only represents A-rated companies. With many options to offer, Covenant Group can accommodate almost any budget. Great discounts for good health and plans available for impaired risk. Call today for a free, no-obligation consultation in the convenience of your home. Call Steve or Jada at 423-855-8484. Call today, 423-855-8484.
$25 goes by quickly these days, and 25 cents still just a quarter. 25 is the years of experience Schultz & Associates puts behind filing your tax return quickly, correctly, and electronically. Schultz & Associates.
Hi, I'm Chip Chapman with this question. Are you concerned about getting a timely refund this year? There is a solution. Ask Schultz & Associates about Refund Advantage. It's a no-interest loan that allows you to get your tax refund quickly. But some tax refund product fees do apply, so make sure and understand the details. You can receive your refund quickly via check or prepaid credit card. Ask about Refund Advantage when you visit Schultz & Associates, 6310 Bonnie Oaks Drive, or call 899-1130. Schultz & Associates.
Baseball sluggers often wear the number 25, or 25 is a full MLB roster. Just happens 25 is also the years of experience Schultz & Associates puts behind filing your tax return quickly, correctly, and electronically. Schultz & Associates, 899-1130.
And now to our reporter in the field.
We asked Ray at Ray's Plumbing what's important for homeowners to know.
Some field line systems can cost upwards of $10,000. The bottom line is to save yourself money down the road. I would definitely recommend everybody with a septic that is not on county or city sewer to have an inspection done by a qualified professional. It'd be great if nobody did inspections on them for all plumbing companies. That's what we do to make a living. Not to scare anyone, but it should be in the back of your mind. The danger is the field lines failing and costing thousands upon thousands of dollars and tearing your yard up. By preventative maintenance, you're saving yourself a large headache that may displace yourself and your family. That happens more often than you think. The waste is designed to stay in the tank, and that waste will build up over time. Even with treatment, we have to help that waste break down. Ultimately, preventative maintenance is the key that will keep you from spending $5,000 to $10,000 on replacing your septic system. The bottom line is to save yourself money down the road.
Call Ray at Ray's Plumbing, 421-6341, 421-6341.
Your marriage is over. You've been abandoned, betrayed. You're angry, shattered, and heartbroken. Don't go it alone. When you are facing divorce, you need an experienced advocate to help protect your rights and future. And you need it from a man with a sympathetic heart, but a hard nose. Attorney Clay Whitaker will fight for you in this most confusing and bitter time in your life. Clay Whitaker, 756-6400.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Expect increasing clouds out there for your Tuesday. Mainly dry, though. Highs into the upper 50s to near 60. Tonight, areas of showers will move in from the west. Lows into the lower 40s. Morning showers and breezy. Cooler Wednesday. Highs 50 to 53. Continued sunny and cool Thursday. Check out Hallmark Signature. Valentine's Day is today, and because there are no ordinary love stories, these are no ordinary cards. Find them in the card aisle wherever Hallmark cards are sold. And I'm 1412 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr. On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
This is David Tulis, the blogger with the biggest pen in Hamilton County in Chattanooga. That is to say, my 180-foot tower pulsating out energy through the airwaves and through the ground. That is how my signal works, in conjunction with a little bit of electricity sent into the metal of that tower. We cover local economy and the free markets, and local economy is not the same thing as the local economy. I don't do business reporting necessarily. The local economy is one thing that Dave Flessner, Mike Perry, and Chloe Morrison over at Nooga.com may cover. We cover local economy as an idea, an ideal, if you will. We could say a working out of the doctrine of sanctification, possibly among some people, where we are trying to be maybe holy and better than we might otherwise be, and doing it in the context of Chattanooga. We are Nooga-centrists and loco-centrists and provincialists. It is very difficult for me to be truly provincial. I am a cosmopolite by upbringing and birth, you could say. Although I was born here in Chattanooga, I'm not a country bumpkin kind of Chattanooga man or Tennessean. Though I think there might be an advantage to myself if I were. We're talking today with John Wolf, an attorney. He's 62 years old, has been practicing law a long time. He is active in the Democratic Party and handles personal injury and civil rights cases. And one question I want to ask on your behalf, my listeners' behalf, to John, is why is it, and how has it happened that the state has come to control so much of innocent and harmless economic activity like hair braiding? Why, for example, in the accounting business, you're a man who's an accountant. You have to have a license to do that. Why does the state control things through licensure? How does that work exactly? And is there what's the ultimate reason behind it, maybe? And can we somehow get away from the whole idea of privilege?
Well, I think what the state originally tried to do is to make sure that when the public dealt with people who claimed to be professionals, that they were dealing with people who were truly professionals and therefore, there were licenses brought into existence, and then to get those licenses, you had to meet certain qualifications and be able to do certain sorts of things, just like being a lawyer. I had to pass a bar exam.
Well, why did the state feel it necessary to oversee that process and not the profession itself?
Well, because I suppose that the professions become allied with the states after a while, and the professions can actually write their wishes into the law. And the law, for instance, the Tennessee Bar Association has the authority to do a lot of things, and the law vests them with that. I mean, they have the authority to license attorneys, to take their license away, to discipline attorneys or anything else.
But that's a very rare thing. Even though there are quite a few bad attorneys, that process is a rare one, John Wolf.
Well, you'd be surprised. I read the Tennessee Bar Association memos all the time, and the law profession is very scrupulous about trying to weed people out who do wrong. I think they are.
Well,
and not necessarily that they do wrong, but that they represent their clients. And if you can look at any given month, there's 4 or 5 lawyers in the state that are either getting publicly censored, disbarred, or suspended. I mean, it happens.
The state licenses many activities, John. What is a license, and how does a license work?
A license is the right to do, the legal authority. It gives you the right to do something, and in some ways, it's like a patent, I suppose, because you have it to the exclusion of people who don't have it. You have rights, I suppose, that you can exercise, as opposed to people who don't have the license, who can't exercise.
So someone who doesn't have a license, let's say to carry a gun under his jacket, someone who does not have a license is forbidden under the intent to go armed statute, but the man who has a license has a privilege. He is able to do something that is forbidden to someone else.
That's right.
He's better than the other person, right? A license makes him better than the other.
Well, he can go get a license. If somebody.
Well, but what if he's poor?
Well,
and doesn't. What if he just can't scrape together the money for the permit, the class, which is $100? It takes a day to do it. What if he's a poor man?
Well, in the situation of a lawsuit, while we have paupers oaths and things like that people with no money can take and afford themselves access to the courts to get justice. As far as I suppose what they would say with regard to guns is that that's a privilege, not a right. And therefore, if you don't have the money, then you don't have the gun.
So a privilege, we're talking here about all kinds of privileges and licenses. A license and a privilege gives one group of people an advantage over another, and that's through the state itself.
That's true. Now, as far as the gun goes, now that the Supreme Court has elevated the Second Amendment to basically a right that people have individually, both at the federal and state, as federal citizens and state citizens. The laws that restrict gun ownership may be subject to strict scrutiny, just like the laws that prevent speech are also under the First Amendment, the interpretation also subject to strict scrutiny. So if somebody wanted to challenge that, the idea of having to pay, if they were truly indigent and couldn't afford, then perhaps they should bring it.
But why that aren't you putting a bit of a burden on the poor person that has to prove indigence? What if a man just doesn't have a lot of money? He's not indigent, but he just doesn't have a lot of wherewithal and is living paycheck to paycheck, has maybe $500 in reserves in his bank account for an emergency. He's a poor man, and yet to do something that's ordinarily innocent and harmless, he has to ask the state to stop discriminating against him.
Well, I think they should get help from pro-gun groups like the NRA. They're very well funded. They could subsidize people with a low income that are truly in need of the money to buy a license. It also depends upon how much the license is. If it's prohibitive, then of course you can see that as an infringement. If it's a nominal cost, then perhaps objectively speaking, it's not really an infringement on the right to bear arms.
Now, the idea of licensing in Tennessee, John, came after the war, when the legislature, in an act which I think should have caused a march on Nashville and the salting of those hills. The licensing was of peddlers now, that let peddlers were licensed because they were middlemen. They came into an area to sell something and then they moved on, and because they were not local, they were aliens and strangers. they were subject to licensing because they did not live there. They were passers through, possibly willing to take advantage of the locals with some bad product. But the process of licensing has expanded a great deal. Does that offend your sense of liberty as an attorney who is concerned about civil rights, John Wolf?
Well, not a whole lot. I mean, I think that people can get licenses if they really want them. I mean, people should help people get licenses if they qualify. I mean, your gun is a deadly thing. I mean, 30,000 people die of firearms in the United States every year. Perhaps there should be more stricter licenses. I mean, they don't have that many people in England or Japan or anywhere else die. I mean, people in Europe think, good Lord, how is it 30,000 Americans?
Well, how many people a year do morticians kill? Why do they have to be licensed?
There's also the respect for the human, for the body.
But why does that have to be
right there?
But why does that have to be imposed upon the actors in that market by the state through the licensing process? It assumes that the people who are running the mortician field will not do that on their own, that they have no self-interest and interest in their customer to do those very things.
Well, that's true. I mean, you got a point. I mean, but supposedly the reason that they give authority to these boards to expel people, to discipline people, and to admit people is so that they can protect the quality of service that the public gets. I mean, that's what the objective is. Now, whether that works at all times, I don't know.
Well, let me ask you about the sharing economy. Is not the prospect of reviews on Google not a way of getting around the alleged necessity of licensing people? You have a chiropractor and you go to his reviews. If there are negative reviews by people who sign, then you have reason to think, well, I might be injured by coming to this practitioner. Someone who's not reviewed at all, he has to obviously charge less because he's not well known, so he has to discount his prices. The man who's well reviewed, you might say well inspected by the people who report online. You have effectively the same function. That's the consumer is rating the provider, and the license, which is licensing, pretends to shortcut that process. If you have a license, well, you obviously must be good. But the licensing does not really guarantee, is not maybe as effective as showing a practitioner's strength and benefit as the public response.
That's Google.
What's the future for licensing?
It'll probably continue on, and of course, the thing about specialties and like law and others. I mean, there's so much information out there. A lot of people feel like they can be their own attorney. Legal services. I think that the overall demand for legal services has probably dropped ever since the internet has sort of hit an apex because people can do so much online and do so much for themselves.
Like finding cases? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, they can do that. I mean, there's so many things that you can get. You can find wills, legal documents, a lot of things that used to be just in the domain of a law officer now out there online for the whole world to see.
And so is that putting pressure, John Wolf, on your bottom line as a practicing attorney?
No, I'm not too much worried about that. I'm 62 years old. I'm fine. I hope. It'd be tougher if I was 25 years old again and trying to start a law practice. It would be a little bit tougher, but I think I could still do it.
So, to get back to licensing seems to me, John Wolf, to be highly discriminatory, and that's because it allows certain people who have money and time and means to be able to do certain things, to enter into professions or to exercise the right of travel, the right of self-protection. These rights, we can't have these rights exercised. We have to have the state enwrap that particular activity in some kind of commercial or other claim and say, okay, you can't enter into this activity apart from our permission, our grace. We give you grace to enter into it if you pay us. So licensing seems to have the state as an arbiter and creating constant classifications among the people where one group is privileged and favored and the other, let's say the poor who can't afford these things, to be disfavored. And that's how do you take that comment as an attorney?
Well, I think there needs to be a board that looks at the people who are trying to market certain skills to the public, and there needs to be someone to vet those people and vet their skills and before they go out and try to do business with the public.
So you're not a free marketer then. You don't take the side of the free market.
It's still free market once you get past the administrative board and you show that you're qualified. Because see, the one thing too about law is it's very complex. I mean, there's a lot there. Even though some of the forms and everything I talked about are simple.
What if we had a board what if we had a future governor who says we need to license babysitters because babysitting is very important. And there needs to be a special classification of people like babysitters, and to enter in that profession, you have to meet the qualifications. You have to go through our grid, pay hundreds of dollars,
I don't think they're going to do that.
2,000 hours of class. Probably not, but
I mean that could happen, but I don't think it will happen. I mean, especially if people are already related, people can take their kids to whomever they want to. Now, if you have a daycare center and you take care of children for profit or money, then of course there are some things that you need to qualify yourself to do. I mean, you need to make sure that the people that work in there are safe. You need to make sure that they're able to take care of children, that they don't have a criminal background, that they're not predators.
And you need to be certified by the state as being able to make sure of those things, right?
Yeah. I mean, apparently, I think it's worked out. I think from my point of view.
What about the 1937 Commercial Driver's License Act that controls all travel on the public right of way today? Almost everybody except Hispanic immigrants travels under a thing called a driver's license. That pretends that says that they're in commerce, they're operating in commerce as common carriers carrying people or goods for hire. Did the 1937 Act destroy a constitutional right to travel? If it did, how come it hasn't been litigated? And if it didn't, why do we have this destroy? If it didn't destroy a right, then why do we not have more people freely traveling without driver's licenses?
Well, I don't know what it did. I'm not really up to date on that. I mean, I think again, you're talking about the operation of a potentially deadly vehicle. You want to make sure that people at least have a modicum of skills before they go out on the road, because we're all going to be out on the road together. Of course, there's some pretty bad drivers with licenses, but that's again responsibility to vet. I mean, this is This is a common issue. This is an issue that affects all of us. Who can drive? Who can't? Who's going to be on the roads and who's not? So, I think it's legitimate.
So you're not concerned. You're not offended, John Wolf. You're a civil rights attorney. You're not offended that the state presumes to control and to actually effectively prohibit all use of the public road except through its commercial regime, application into its commercial regime.
I think everybody that I know comes out there, they get their license when they're 15 or 16. I mean, they drive as long as they're driving safe. Nobody bothers them. They break a speed limit or something like that, then perhaps the police will see it. Maybe they'll get a ticket. Maybe their insurance rates will go up. They're a bigger risk. I mean, this is all a common concern. That's why the state is involved. I don't see it as oppressive at all. I mean, I suppose that we could just have anybody drive any car anywhere they wanted to, and then just
that would be freedom and liberty. That would be very concerning.
That would be just a libertarian. Let's go get it. But everything.
But again,
I'll admit that overall society is probably too structured, more structured than it needs to be. But then again, you don't want a lot of unsafe people around, because that affects the lives of people who are safe that don't need to be bothered by people who aren't.
Well, people who are unsafe are going to get their licenses. They're going to get insurance. And that doesn't change their brusque character, their carelessness, their use of the phone and texting and things on the road, or even using alcohol.
That's true.
People who are licensed are not congenitally better than those who don't. And people who don't have licenses, let's say are thousands of Hispanic immigrants in the Chattanooga area. They're afraid of the man. They don't want to deal with the man. They just try to get by unnoticed. And I would think that they are probably the most careful drivers, because they don't want an accident. They don't want to draw attention to themselves. They don't want to have an encounter with the officer, because then he's going to ask about their immigration status. So they are likely most deferential about most defensive drivers on the road, those who are not insured and not licensed, because they're concerned about touching other people and their bumpers.
Well, that may be true about the immigrants. That's a good point.
Why would that not be true about Anglo-Saxons?
They're also driving cars that a lot of them that may not be as safe as other cars. But that's why we have uninsured motorist protection. To make sure that you're entitled to that too. I mean, unless your insurance agent writes it off, you have it, and it gives you a certain amount of protection against people who don't have insurance. Of course, you have to pay about $50 a year or more to have that kind of coverage, but nonetheless, it's worth it. It covers your car as well, and it runs your motor's property damage. It also covers your passenger.
Does it bother you that this is a compulsory system of insurance giving mandatory business to these gigantic insurance companies, John Wolf?
No, I mean, I think it's important for people to cover the other person. I mean, liability is something that happens, and people are going to be negligent. It's inherent in the human being that mistakes will be made. Now, all the law is saying is that when you do make those mistakes, that you cover other people, and that you have, if you're going to operate a vehicle, that you do so in a way that you can pay for the damages you might create. And to me, that's not oppressive. That's just interlocking interests coming together under the rubric of government to solve a common problem.
Well, John, if my listener has a legal question, how can he get a hold of you? And what does
y'all
he need to know
give me a
about you?
call at 423-266-8400. That's 423-266-8400. And my cell phone, which I usually don't give out, but just because I'm on the radio.
You're special. You, my listener, are a unique, remarkable man.
I'm here on the this is the first time I've been on the radio in a number of years. So, 423-933-8891. That's 423-933-8891. That's my cell phone number if you want to call that.
And you specialize in police abuse cases, is that right?
Yeah.
You have a special interest in those?
Yes, I've a lot of times have we've gotten big settlements sometimes in police liability cases where people have been shot by the police unlawfully, I might add. We've done pretty well in Bradley County too from time to time when the police up there made mistakes and done what we think they shouldn't have done. That's what I like to do, and is to try to hold law enforcement accountable.
Well, I think we need more attorneys like that. This is David Tulis. We've been talking with John Wolf, an attorney, and asking the question about the Driver's License Act and whether or not the commercial driver's license law of pre-World War II destroyed a constitutional right. And we know, of course, it didn't. No law like that ever destroys a constitutional right. But it does make it difficult for people who are asserting constitutional rights or who travel freely on the public highway, on the public right of way, the ways owned by the people, merely stewarded by the state, and that under regulation, under the commercial statute that requires regulation and control of people making their livings on the public right of way. Again, David Tulis, thanks for giving us a few minutes of your time. Go to Nooganomics.com and find out the latest about the Gaddy case. The Gaddys were confronted by the city of Dunlap yesterday and did not give in. They're asserting constitutional rights. No search without a warrant, they're saying. No search without a warrant.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.